Howdy, Aggs. Welcome to the Aggie Central podcast. Saturday will mark the first leg of a 3-game SEC road test. First, we head to Stark Vegas to see what's good with Mississippi State and Mike Leach's air raid offense. Last year, Mississippi State came in and gave us our second lump in what was a frustrating game. But looking back, it was a bridge between an even more frustrating game against Arkansas the week before, then followed by an almost heroic win against Bama the next week. It may have been a stepping stone, but it was a tough pill to swallow at the time, and one the Aggies are not wanting to ingest again. If we want to avoid that, we need to know 3 things. First, what is the air raid offense? 2, who is facilitating that air raid? And 3, can we keep up? My goal here is to give you a quick crash course in air raid concepts so you know more about what you are seeing during the game. Also, the concepts feed into getting to know the personnel and what we have to do to keep up. I was surprised to get a few hogs last week to sub the channel due to what they said was a good job. I think that means I just gave an honest assessment of their team. So hopefully I can get a few Bulldogs to do the same. So let me know, Mississippi State fans, because if you give it a good review, my Aggies watching should know they're getting a good preview of y'all. Just think of it as shaking that cowbell when a good play happens. Hit the sub button if you see a good review tonight, all right? Now, all the newcomers, let us know where you're watching from. Any Ags in Mississippi this week? Anyone going to the game? Let us know in the comments where you are. So let's talk about a few key concepts of the air raid quickly. First, probably the most obvious difference between any other system is the unbalanced nature it brings to the game. A true air raid means getting bombarded from the air, hence the name. So teams throw in excess of 75%. The bulk of the running game is done through screens, if you don't mind calling that running. If you're knee-deep in the Sumlin area, you know all about this kind of running, and it's really not running. This type of running has no basis in establishing the line of scrimmage. So it really is just an extension of the running game, nothing like a true running game. You can expect to see 10 personnel a lot with Leach running 4 wide receivers most of the time. He's going to be using bigger than normal splits on the line as well with his five linemen. From this formation, they will run a variety of concepts, but I think 2 main ideas are what we need to focus on. Now, to you Aggies, this is going to be somewhat of a novel idea, and it's called the mesh. The mesh is nothing more than a crossing route. 2 wide receivers run crossing routes, basically playing chicken. And so the mesh is running right next to each other and forming a natural pick. So you can't go up and set a pick because that's illegal, but you can run a route. And because you're running a route, if both of you run right next to each other, then somebody's got to move out of the way. And if it's not the 2 wide receivers, then it must be the defenders. That's exactly how this works. So what do? Do you play under? Do you play on top? Do you trail? Do you try and get in front? If you trail, which is most common, you're going to have to catch up because they're using speed. So this is a big deal. This is how they get guys open very easily. Now you can look for Leach to run this type of play 10 to 20 times per game. It really is one of the staples of his offense, and Leach loves to run this. Now how does Mississippi State run this scheme? It's simple but coordinated game plan that starts with Will Rogers, who is the 2nd ranked passer in the country, with 346 yards per game and a top 30 rating. How is he averaging this though? He's completing a salty 74% of his passes. Now let that sink in. 74% of his passes, and he's doing that with the 3rd most attempts. So on 189 attempts, he has completed 140 of those. He's averaging 35 completions per game for 7.3 yards per attempt. Factoring for that, his rank does drop to 75th among all QBs though. But of QBs with over 70% completion percentages, he is one of the 3 to complete over 100 passes. But he's far and away ahead of the others with his 140. The closest being 104. Now he's completed more than most have even attempted. So to say that they are a pass-heavy offense is just the understatement of the century. Obviously, with a pass-heavy offense, their rush then is going to take quite a blow. It's going to be massively diminished. They're ranked 124th out of 131 and are one of 4 teams that have less than 100 totes. Only 4 have less than 100 carries, and they are one of those teams. Obviously, though, because of the drastically reduced carries, they just won't have impressive rush numbers. But however, that hasn't really kept Dylan Johnson from being productive. Now, he's a 6 foot, 215-pound toter. He really is the perfect back for their scheme. Although not averaging many yards per game, as expected with only being given 25 carries per game, his average is respectable at 3.5 yards per run. Now that touches 4.5 yards per carry on first downs and in third and short situations, so he is effective. But his running abilities really isn't the point. Mississippi State under Mike Leach has, wide splits like I was saying, so this makes it nearly impossible not to lick your lips thinking that you're going to get to the QB. But that's where Johnson's added value comes, because a slightly smaller back, a quicker back, they will be able to dink and dunk all day long. This is to keep the defense honest. They work in screens any way they can, and Johnson is an integral part of that with 21 catches and 121 yards. So it may not seem like much, and it's not, but this aspect of their offense is about keeping the defense honest, right? It's not really about the yards. It's not about getting first downs, right? It's a strategy. And so what they want to do is they want to force you to cover all parts of the field. But more importantly, this is how they avoid and thwart you from getting a good pass rush, because most teams want to affect the passer. And if they can't do that, that's where the problem comes in. So, Johnson also is averaging 5.3 receptions per game, which leads the team. So a running back leads the team in receptions. Now, tell me you're an air raid offense without telling me you're an air raid offense. But this is the staple of the air raid, and the running back contributions provide an outlet and just a quick check down anytime there is pressure. And where Johnson is utilized for short yardage passes, Caleb Ducking carries the bulk of the yardage through the air. Tied with Johnson for the most receptions per game, he stretches the defense with a 12-plus yard per completion average. Leading the team with 5 TDs on the year, there is no mistaking who the alpha is. But don't be foolish, there are others. Rafa Thomas, 2 TDs with 15-yard average. Rufus Harvey, 1 TD, but he's the second most catches. Lytrick Griffin, 1 TD and an 11-yard average. Their system gets guys open, and they spread it around. The air raid has a focus of getting guys deep down the field, but to date, they have only completed 1 pass of 40-plus yards. Shots deep down the field, although have been taken, the focus seems to have given way to getting first downs. Mississippi State is a top 25 team in both plays of 10 or more yards with 70, and in first downs with 101 overall. 69 of those came through pass. Their first downs are up by 10% from 2021 through the same time, which has led to a drastic increase in points scored. So through September, last year, their average 28.5 points. That has ballooned to 37. And when at home, they get a shot of steroids in the arm, scoring 47 points on average. Now, this may be a little high to this point, because last year they had played 3 games at home, and so far this year it's only been 2. So it was easy for that to be kind of skewed. But you can see the writing on the wall. The point is, offensively, they are a dangerous team. And more than that, they are a frustrating team. There's many reasons why, as we were talking about it. It could be because of their crossing routes that no one is sure how to cover, whether it be between man or zone, and just not being able to get a solid way to defend. It could be the blitz pressure that you think you're going to get and then you don't, because they drop it off to a running back on a screen. And don't forget their running game. It just takes a little off the edge. It doesn't seem like much, but it is effective because it's a surprise most of the time. It's not their standard play. All told, again, they are effective and dangerous. Flipping over, you will initially see a lot of the same that you have been seeing from our defense. They will run 3 down linemen almost exclusively. When they do, they will rotate and flex linebackers and DBs in and out. A lot of the time they keep 5 on the line, which is something I've been advocating for. So watch closely how they play this defense. I'd say at this point they have learned how to play the 3-man front with a top 50 rush D and pass D, giving up 114 on the ground and just over 200 through the air per game. They've proven that they can run this D effectively. The combination of the two has them as the 33rd best coast to coast in total D. They're allowing 319 yards per game and just under 5 yards per play. To be fair, they have only faced a top 60 offense once when they faced off against LSU. When they did, the opponent's offense put up 417 total yards, 210 slinging it and 207 pounding it, giving them a 31-16 L. You're now probably wondering, well, if when they finally played a quality offense, it didn't go so well, what kind of defenses have they been playing so far? And perhaps that boosted their numbers. And so I'll give that to you. But keep in mind, through 4 games, most everyone has faced lesser competition, and with lesser competition comes inflated numbers. The Aggies should have inflated numbers, at least in certain areas. So, what have they been up against? Well, you might have suspected it, but other than LSU, they have not faced a defense inside the top 100. Arizona is 103rd, Memphis is 107th, and Bowling Green is 128th. Now, don't underestimate their D, though. They might have some vulnerabilities, but they are capable. Now, make sure you know Jet Johnson. He's their 6'2", 235-pound linebacker who leads the team in tackles. And he's the 36th best tackler on either side of the Mississippi, with actually 36 total tackles, and he's averaging 9 per game. So he has friends too. Nathaniel Watson, 6'2", 240, 29 tackles and a couple of sacks with an INT. Cameron Richardson adds 21 more tackles and the most passes defended on the team. So he's got some guys to go along with him. One thing to note, though, but likely expected and something to watch for from our D as it progresses, Mississippi State D only has one D lineman in the top 10 as a tackler. That's Randy Charlton. So you might see our defense really give way to linebackers, which is okay, but also to more of the DB and the safety as our top tacklers. So, and naturally, you'd probably want to know where A&M sits relative to those numbers. Defensively, we are closer to LSU. They're 12th, and we're 40th. To give you more perspective, LSU is allowing 257 yards per game. We are giving up 330. Arizona, the closest person on the other side of this, is giving up 416. Offensively, with LSU at 22nd and Memphis at 61, you still got to go through Arizona at 63 before you get to A&M. We're at 103rd. Yes, A&M's got the 103rd ranked team in total offense. Bowling Green comes after that at 103rd. So these are the opponents that they have faced, and then us where we will sit. Now, if we look at things from a scoring perspective, we actually don't get any better, and we actually end up getting worse, because out of all of those teams, we have the fewest points per game at 21. So not a very enlightening aspect to look at. So as you can see, it's pretty dicey prospect by the numbers. We've only scored more than 2 TDs on offense against Sam Houston State. Special teams and turnovers have played a vital role in each game. So against App State, we had the kickoff return. Against Miami, we had the fumble recovery that we put in for a TD, and then the fumble return for 6. Against Arkansas, plus the doink, right? Now, I've said that 24 is a good number for the Aggs and still win some games, but unfortunately, that has been true with some bounces going our way. And playing against some lesser offenses, I would say too. We faced the best offense, or we did face the best offense to date last week, and thankfully we did have some special teams points to go along with it. I think we will face an even better offense this week, and I think we'll need about 30 to have a chance. And I mean 30 standard points, 30 typical points. Not the non-typical stuff. What I mean by that is, like for instance, it was especially nice that we had the 14-point swing against Arkansas, who had the go-ahead score that we turned into the fumble TD, right? We've talked about it. That changed the game drastically. We continue to get that kind of production, I think we have a great chance. But that well usually runs dry at some point. If we play just a straight game, no big swing plays like that mentioned with Archie, I think we need the 30 points to beat this team. Okay, they're good offense and they've got a capable defense. They can get stops in the stretch. Our defense, though, should be one of the best that they have faced and hold them to something not as good as LSU, but perhaps near. I think that number reasonably could be between 24 and 28 points. If our D can do that, we will have a chance. Um, but our offense is good for about 17 at this point. We've seen that through Miami and through Arkansas from the offensive side of production. I think we need one more TD to make it a game. Again, we're talking about standard points. We get something special teams wise, we get a couple of turnovers, then there's more to that. We'll talk about that more here in just a second, though. But games can change pretty quick that way. That's how I see it. Right now, they're about a 3.5 point favorite. It's not a bleak outlook, but it's not great matchup wise. I mean, we are playing at Davis Wade as well. I don't like it. Something about playing there has never sat well with me. So look, I'm going to take this game, Mississippi State 27, Aggies 21, and there's a couple reasons for that. And these are my keys to the game for the Aggies if they're gonna win, because you know how I feel about predictions. 27-21 is just a prediction. That's not the way this game's going to turn out. It's not exactly what I think they could do, but I think on paper that's what the prediction should be at this point. But there are X factors. There are things that go with these things, and things that in ways a team is going to perform that is not going to be standard. So you can't measure heart, you can't measure grit, and you can't measure determination, and you especially can't measure them on both teams. So my keys to this, and these are ways that we can look, I think that would or play that would really benefit us. And the very first one, I think everybody would agree with, that we need usually we would say a fast start on offense. I think we need a fast start on defense. I don't think we can give up a couple of quick TDs and expect to recover, right? We have a struggling offense, although growing, but struggling. So if we get down 14-0, like we did against Arkansas, we could definitely end up seeing a struggle game. Okay, so my second key is win the turnover battle. Turnovers stop them scoring, and they give us a second chance. And when we stop them from scoring, that is a way to limit a really, really good offense, which I think that they've got. My third key is to improve at the offensive line. So improvement here is what make that TDs possible with that added growth. If we get that growth I'm talking about, we could definitely add 7 points, maybe as much as 10. I don't want to stretch it too much because I want to give you a reasonable idea, but we've lacked in those areas, and even if we do improve, it's not necessarily paying huge dividends points wise. So I think any more than 7 is probably a bit of a stretch. I think we will show improvement again, but how much? From a 17-point offensive production against, like I said, Miami, and also what we really did against Arkansas, I think a 3-point gain there is a reasonable assumption. So about a 3-point gain, that could come through a touchdown though. So that's why I bumped it up to 21. So I think that's where a pretty reasonable idea about how we could go about scoring that. So we'll see how things play out typically, but we could be surprised by some things. I don't see a reason to predict it any better based off of standard analysis. But here's the thing, and we've seen it a couple times now, and I've been surprised before. So I'll see you back on Sunday, and we'll see if we've got another surprise. Till then, thanks and gig 'em.